My people, welcome to Rants Randomness. I'm Luvvie and I'm your host and side-eye sorceress. Today I'm bringing you portions of the audio from Instagram and Facebook Live that I did because I haven't been showing up live very often, but I just finished book 2 and I wanted to celebrate with everyone and talk a bit about what it takes to get a book written and published. I'm taking all of the behind-the-scenes details on my first book, I'm Judging You, the Do Better Manual, as well as spilling the exclusive details on how I got this second book deal, what the writing process was like, the tools that I used to actually get the thing written, and how when something is sitting on your heart, you gotta do that thing. So let's get into it. I'm excited to be here today because we're talking book writing, because I just finished writing my second book. If this is your first time joining any of my lives, I am a New York Times bestseller. I have been blogging and being on these interwebs for 17 years. I wrote a book called I'm Judging You, the Do Better Manual. This book came out in 2016 and it changed my life. It instantly hit the New York Times bestselling list and it allowed me to live the life I was too afraid to live. It allowed me to retire my mother. This book changed my life in the best way. When my book was coming out, I realized that it had to prove a point because I signed my book deal for I'm Judging You in 2015. And when I did, there were no popular essay collections by Black girls. My book proposal went out the same week that Issa Rae's book dropped. So I couldn't even use Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl to say, hey, publishers, my book was sold too because this did, because hers came out right before my proposal came out. So shout out to the pioneer of Issa Rae. But when I wanted to write this book and when I started shopping it out, it was considered risky. All the editors that were interested were like, okay, that's cool, but it's probably not going to sell well. One editor said yes, Henry Holt. So I signed my book deal with Macmillan Publishing in March 2015. Y'all, my book advance was low. My book advance was nothing compared to what people are getting now. So I knew the point of my book, this book that I wrote, was to blow people out the water and was to kill the game because I wanted to change publishing, not just for me, because I realized that if my book did well, it would make it easier for another Black woman to write a book and be taken seriously for it. If I'm Judging You did well, it was gonna be doing well for more than me. So I was really determined. It was like a battery in my back. I was like, I know my advance is lower than what I feel like I deserve, but this is an opportunity. We take the things that we consider failure as opportunity, right? So I was like, this is an opportunity to blow folks out the water. So I called in all my favorites. I'm a Capricorn. I'm very much independent minded. It's really hard for me to ask people for favors. This book, I was like, yo, drop the ego, ask people for favors, call in your favors because you need this book to be amazing. And I wrote this book over 5 months in 2015, 83,000 words. May 2015 is when I started writing the book itself. And then I finished it October 2015. And I knew it was good because I wanted to write the book that I was proud of. But when it came to marketing it, I realized that I really had to double down on this idea that I can't call in favors. So I was like, yo, call in all your favorites. Call all your friends who might be somebody. Call somebody who got connections, because how you gonna get this book on lists? How you gonna get this book in everybody's hands? How you gonna make sure people know that I'm Judging You's coming out? Because again, my advance was small and I didn't have much marketing support because my book was not supposed to be a big book. This book was not supposed to be a big book at all. It was like, we like it. It'll be cool. So I was like, y'all know what happens when people don't fully buy into what we want to do. When we feel like we have a point to prove, we will go hard. And that's what I did. I went hard. I was like, yo, not only will I call in my favors, all the marketing and social media know-how that I know, I'm going to put it into effect, right? I'm going to make sure that this thing kills. Hey, do you think your book club want to read this book? Hey, Do you think your company wants a speaker who can come and talk about books and whatever? I worked my ass off. Worked my ass off. So when I'm Judging You came out on September 13th, 2016, I didn't do any national television press. I was not as big as I was, whatever big looks like. I had 100,000 followers on Facebook at this point, I believe. I had maybe 30,000 on Instagram. I mean, I was consistently doing stuff, but whatever y'all see today is not who I was 5 years ago in terms of access to people. So when this book came out on September 13, 2016, man, listen, I had a piece in the New York Times. I was featured in Forbes, in Inc., in my first reading of this book happened at Facebook headquarters. I was everywhere, right? It made it seem like I was everywhere, but I really wasn't. I wasn't on the Today Show. I wasn't on GMA. I wasn't, doing late night television. It was on the power of the internets and the power of y'all, my community. Y'all were like, Luvvie, we got you, because you heard me say, listen, I need y'all to help make this book a success, because the success of this book goes beyond me. It means another Black woman can walk into a publishing house, say, this is the work that I want to do, and it's going to sell well because Luvvie's did well. I told my audience, I said, listen, I need your help, because if I become a New York Times bestseller, it makes it that much easier for somebody else, because they'll say, Luvvie's book becomes the book that they will add to their proposal. I came to y'all. I was like, I'm not too proud to beg. Please support this book. It's good. You're going to like it. Buy it. And if you buy it and you like it, buy it for somebody else. And y'all were like, we got you. And you meant it. You meant it. Book came out. The New York Times list comes out 8 days after every book. So books comes out on Tuesday. The week after, you will find out. The week after, on a Wednesday, you find out whether you make the New York Times list. And that list depends on who ordered the book beforehand and who bought it the week of. On September 21st, 2016, I was getting ready for Ad Color Awards when I got a call from my publicist, who was like, Luvvie, I'm screaming. And I was like, wait, what? It was like 5:07 p.m. She was like, you're on the list. I said, what list? She said, the New York Times list. I was like, she's like, you're number 5. I think I lost my mind for like 3 minutes. Like, I'm talking screaming. You're on the New York Times list. You're number 5. I wasn't number 16. I wasn't number 20 squeaked in. I was number 5. I dropped David Brooks, who works for the New York Times, down one spot. My book dropped him down one spot, and he works for the New York Times. When I tell you instant life changer, I get off the phone with my publicist, and I called my mom and my sister next, and I was like, I'm on the list. And we celebrated for like 20 minutes, and I was like, I have to go. Then the next person I called was my speaking agent. And I said, I'm number 5 on the New York Times list. And he said, well, we just doubled your fees. When a Black author or a Black creative does something like this, makes it into a clubhouse that nobody can take them out of, it reverberates. It changes everything, because the fact that this one thing instantly doubled my fees, I was like, wow. So that's what book writing has done to me, done for me. It opened doors that I didn't even think were open. I started being able to be in rooms that I didn't even know existed. I was getting all types of invitations that I was like, this is a thing? The power of our words, the power of my words have taken me places that I didn't even dare to dream, right? And I was a girl who was afraid of calling herself a writer for 9 years. I started blogging in 2003 as a hobby, was afraid to call myself a writer for years because I thought a writer looked like Toni Morrison, the women who were writing amazing novels. Maya Angelou, that's a writer. So I didn't call myself a writer because I was afraid that I didn't earn that title. And I didn't call myself a writer until 2012 when I found myself in spaces that people who called themselves writers and were backed by $1 million entities were also in. I was like, my words is awesomely Luvvie got me in the same place as a journalist from CNN, from Entertainment Weekly, from New York Times, and here I am in the same rooms as them. I am a writer. So in case you're watching this and you're wondering whether you are a writer, do you write? If you write, you are a writer. If you are somebody who wakes up thinking about words, you are a writer. If you are somebody who people tell has amazing ways of putting ideas, you're a writer. If you're somebody who one day wants to write, you are a writer. So I'm wearing this hat that says writer on it. I'm wearing this hat today as a testimony of how far having the audacity to own something that feels big and scary can take you. It is powerful. And sometimes the things that we are afraid of feel really big, and our fear of them is bigger than what the actual thing is. It wasn't until I said I'm a writer that things that I was afraid of got moved out the way. All the things about how am I going to make money? Like, what does it mean to be a writer? The moment I said, you know what, God, you're right. I'm a writer. God was like, I've been waiting for you to say this. I have been waiting for you this whole time. Thank you for being here. I got you. That's literally what happened in my life. When people are like, when did your career pop? I have multiple moments in my career where I can see hockey stick grow, where it was like stagnant. Okay, this thing happened. Stagnant some more. This thing happened. But when I said I am a writer, the moment I said that, God was like, bet. Here's a couple of columns in a magazine. Here, brands are going to come to you and ask you to collaborate because they know your audience is huge. Here, this book agent is going to recognize your talent and tell you that there's a book in you. And I'm going to drop the idea in your head. That's when I was like, oh, so you were just waiting on me to stop being afraid. Got you. All right. Lesson learned. And so here I am today. I'm doing a lot of things. Where I am today is bigger than where I ever thought was possible because I didn't have the audacity to even think the life that I live right now was possible. And there are times when I still have the imposter syndrome where it surprises me when I think about my life. I remember on my wedding day, there was a moment where I was sitting there and I was actually shocked because it felt like I was watching a movie of somebody else's life. And I had to tell myself, no, that's your life. Good things can happen for you and they will happen to you. And when they happen, sit in the gratitude, soak it in, don't question it, and know that you have been given a gift. It is for you to enjoy, not to question. It is for you to enjoy, not to question. Your gift is not for you to question constantly. And somehow somebody tricked us into thinking that the other shoe is always going to drop, and it messes us up. It has us not enjoying the moments we should. Brene Brown calls it foreboding joy. She calls it foreboding joy, which means when something happens, you don't fully celebrate it because you're wondering what the catch is. In my career, there are moments where I'm just like, yeah, what's the catch? What is the boogeyman that's about to happen? So that's what I work through. And that's why I'm really excited about book 2, because it is the most personal thing I've ever written. It is the most vulnerable thing I've ever written. And I deeply believe that it is the most transformative thing I've ever written, because I wrote a book that I wanted to read, that I needed to read in the times when I was afraid to call myself a writer. I am really proud about book 2 because it's not a sequel to book 1. It is not. It is the big sister. So book 1 did what it was, right? This is the big sister to book 1. This is the book that I need even now in the times when I look around and I say, I'm afraid of what the next level is like because I'm afraid of not having what I feel like I need in place. So I wanted to do this live because I know there are a lot of people who want to write a book one day. There are a lot of people who are afraid to live these bold, bold, bold lives. There are a lot of people who are afraid of the great gifts that they get, that they are trusted with. Because sometimes God trusts us with certain gifts because he knows we can handle it. But then we are afraid of the gift because it feels too big for us. It's like you wearing a coat that's not yours. It's like it feels like you're putting on something that doesn't belong to you. And I'm like, even as my career goes up, even as all these things happen, imposter syndrome switches. It's not that I don't think I don't belong in the room. It's that sometimes I'll be in the room and I'll still be like, holy shit, how did I get here? So book 2 is the thing I have done that honestly to date has made me most proud. It's called the Fear Fighter Manual. That's the tagline. And it is literally about how my life has transformed the moment that I stopped letting fear stop me. And it's not that I'm fearless. I'm never fearless. It's not that I don't have fear. It's always that I insist and commit to doing the thing that scares me, even in the middle of it. I am a testament and testimony of God's grace and constantly doing scary things. But it has led me to live this bold life that I live. And when y'all are like, yes, Luvvie, you doing all the work, you doing this stuff. When y'all cheer me on Instagram, I hear you, I see you, I need it. Because we're not going to stop being scared. So it's funny. I feel like God just be like, I got a sense of humor. I'm funny. I got things for you. I got tests for you to pass because I'm writing the Fear Fighter Manual and COVID hits, y'all. COVID hits when I'm writing a book about conquering fear, when I'm writing stories about my life, when I'm digging into some really painful experiences that I've gone through, when I'm talking about moments that I was unsure, when I am talking about sometimes leaping without any type of wings, right? COVID happens. So let's even go back a little bit before COVID happens. Every book idea that I've gotten, including book 1, has felt like a light bulb moment. Like it was like God downloaded the idea into my head and was like, all right, go run it. So book 1 comes out in 2016. Folks been like, when is book 2 coming? I've been like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Why? Because so how I got the book idea for this one was 2014, 6 years ago. I wake up and y'all basically let me know, because my voice is singular. You know my work so well that you can tell I wrote something, even if my name is not on it. Y'all like, that sounds like Luvvie. So I woke up one day and I had a bunch of messages from folks who were like, hey, I just read this thing that sounded like you, but don't have your name on it. So I go check it. This journalist had written a piece, had taken 3 paragraphs of my words, dropped it in his, didn't give me no credit. And because y'all love to snitch, and I appreciate you for it, please continue. I was like, yeah, this dude definitely plagiarized me. So I go on this rant on Twitter, on my blog, on Facebook about how people shouldn't plagiarize. And I dragged this man so hard that I had to take a nap afterwards because I was so tired. I was like, whew, all that dragging, I need a break. So I went and took a nap. When I woke up, I had an email from the guy who was like, oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. You didn't know you weren't supposed to plagiarize somebody? I thought we learned that in the 4th grade. You ain't know? So I remember I tweeted, is there a limited edition handbook? Is there not a limited edition handbook on how not to suck as humans? How to be less terrible as humans? And I pressed publish, and I promise you I had one of those like cartoon light bulb moments that was like, oh, that's the book you should write. So that's how I'm judging you came to be. That is how I'm judging you came to be. I had that idea. So when folks were asking, okay, so where's book 2? I was like, I don't have the idea yet. And I don't want to force nothing. I'm not going to come out with a book just for the sake of it. So I was waiting to get the download and idea for this. My TED Talk happened, which in itself is a story, blows your mind, because I said no to my TED Talk twice. Unique, who's on here, hey boo, have friends who believe in you, y'all. Unique is the reason why I did the TED Talk, because I was about to tell them for a third time that I can't do it. And I called Unique, and Unique was like, ma'am, stop playing on my phone and go write your talk. That TED Talk ends up going viral. It's now at 5 million views. And I get a note about it every single day from people who are saying, I watched your TED Talk. It made me do this thing that felt bigger than me. I watched your TED Talk. It made me quit my job. I watched your TED Talk. It made me have this tough conversation with somebody. It's called Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable, but it's really about fear. It's get used to being afraid. Get used to doing the things that feel bigger than you. Get used to being like, yo, this is tough. Because the things that are usually tough are the things you're supposed to do. And when I finally reflected, I was like, yeah, that's a lesson I've constantly been brought. That's a lesson that I've had to learn over and over again. That's a lesson that has changed my life, has allowed me to be the person who's here. It's allowed me to do things that just felt like the dream, right? It's what allowed me to sit in Oprah's house and be like, I'm so glad I didn't delete the email, because I actually did delete the email because I thought it was fake. Again, sometimes we also need to listen to the signs that the world presents to us, that God is trying to download to us. The idea that you are getting, the idea that you can't stop thinking about, the idea that you think, nah, that's kind of wild. Nah, it's probably the thing you should do. You should probably listen to that thing. You should probably listen to that. That thing that you're like, who will I be to do that? That thing, you should do it. You should absolutely do it, because sometimes God will trick us by making it seem as if it's too big. But that's God being like, it feels too big for you. It ain't too big for me. God is like, yeah, the idea might feel big for you. It ain't for me. I got you. I'm the one who gave you the idea, correct? We're going to make it happen. So I got the idea for this book. It was very clear. For me to write something, I need to be crystal clear about it. I need to know where I'm going. I almost like work it out in my head before it ever comes on paper. Like I will sit on a plane and be sitting there just like this and writing a whole blog post. So by the time I actually pull my paper out, all the words pour out. So when I got the download of what this book was about, I was on the way to Paris. I was on the way to a speaking engagement. I was getting paid to fly to Paris, first class, which also a dream, all right? With my husband, and they paid for him too, to be there. Again, the things that you never thought were possible. Who knew? Okay, I'm on the way to Paris. I sit down and I got the first line of my book. It was like I instantly got it, and I was like, oh, that's the first line of this book. That's what this book is about. Oh my God, I got it now. It was amazing. I usually fall asleep on planes instantly. I'm the one who, before the plane even leaves the ground, I'm like, not that day. I pulled out my notepad. I wrote that first line down. Of course, the Paris trip also changed my life, because that's where I got engaged. It was just an epic weekend. I got the book deal in September. Let me tell you how God works one more time. I sent my proposal out. If y'all saw me and Yvonne in Mexico gallivanting last year, it was because I said I was going to go meet her there to write my book proposal. So I wrote my book proposal in Mexico in 2 weeks. My book proposal was 50 pages. I'm telling you right now, the one thing that I do really well, even beyond writing the book, I write amazing book proposals. Like really good book proposals, to where even editors who didn't end up bidding on my book were like, this proposal is incredible. 12 editors were interested in my book. 12. Me. Who only had one person bid on her first book. 12 people went in my book. Anyway. So, more on how God works. I got my second book deal on the 3rd anniversary of my first book. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't think that was one. It was too good. I got my second book deal on the exact day, 3 years later, that I published my first book. So this book came out September 13th, 2016. I got my book deal for my second book, September 13th, 2019. I was like, all right, Jesus, you know what? You're right. I be bugging. I be tripping. Why do I even be worrying? Why do I worry when you be like, I got you? Okay? And let me tell you something right now. Remember when my advance was not on nothing? They came correct this time. They came correct. And I jumped on the bed. I literally jumped on the bed like a 5-year-old because it was a culmination of work, of struggles. Because y'all remember when the New York Times sticker wasn't on my book for 9 months after it hit the Times list? Okay. Y'all remember how hard I was marketing, how I would walk into bookstores and be like, oh, you don't have my book? Well, here's what it's called. You should get it. Y'all remember how I was just constantly like, yo, please buy this book. So for that to happen, man, listen, I'm like, it was in itself another dream come true because it also meant other people who look like me got amazing deals. It meant the world had changed enough in the 4 years since my first book came out, almost 4 years now, that could even be on the table for me. Listen, won't he do it? Won't he will. So I started writing the book in November 2019. I was lollygagging. I like to procrastinate. You know what I mean? I like to take my time on stuff. You know, my editor wasn't tripping. She was like, I have this deadline. I knew my deadline was May. So I like to, again, procrastination nation right here, me, all the time. So I was like, yeah, I got time. You know what I mean? I'm going to write it. The thing about a proposal, so for those who are here who want to write a book, what you do when you want to write a book, the first thing, an outline. Once you have your book idea, you get an outline. Once you have this outline, you write a proposal. The proposal for a book is the thing, it's like the business plan for a book. And I'm really good at writing them. My proposals be so doggone good. Okay? Why they're important for your book writing process, and if you're somebody who wants to write a book, even if you don't currently have an agent, write a book proposal. It is necessary. I think it is necessary. I think it's a step nobody should skip. Because anybody who skips it suffers for it in the back end. A proposal for a book talks about everything that the book is about. You know, it gives a breakdown of the book. It breaks down the chapters, gives a rough table of contents, right? The book proposal also now talks about who you are. Why are you the right person to write this book? What is the platform you currently have or are building? What are the awards you've gotten? What are the ways that you know that you're the right person to do this? That needs to go in your book proposal. But the key about the book proposal, what makes it really important, is that it allows you to think through the book that you're writing. You shouldn't just sit down and be like, I'm going to write a book without pre-planning the book. Write out the outline. Okay, chapter 1, it'll be about this. Even if it's a couple of sentences. Chapter 2, it'll be about this. Or if you're writing a nonfiction, if you're writing a fiction book, here's the arc of the story. Whatever it is, your book proposal serves to be the thing that if you're telling somebody about this book, they can read about the book. It is the business plan for the book. Just like how before you start a company, they say do a business plan. Before you write a book proposal. It makes your life easier because when you are writing the book proposal becomes a guideline. The book proposal is your compass. It is the thing that lets you know, okay, So here's where I'm going. Here's where I wanted to say. Here's how I'm going to say it. The book proposal also has a mini marketing plan that you put in there that says, here's how I'm going to promote this thing once it's out, because you're not writing the book just so it sits on the shelf. So COVID hits and I only have 20,000 words and I'm writing a book about fear in the middle of a global pandemic that we haven't seen before. I am writing a book about fear in the middle of a global pandemic. I was like, see, so when I went to go see my therapist, and my therapist was like, and she said, what are you up to nowadays? And I was like, oh, I'm doing a lot of things. Writing wasn't one of them, though. And she was like, what if you float? Because I was like, what happens when things happen that's kind of rough is you either sink or swim. And my therapist was like, why are those the two other options? Why must you float? Heck, part of the reason why I couldn't float was because I was on deadline for this book. That's why I couldn't float. I'm writing about fear in the middle of fear. Correct. God was like, I have jokes for you. Okay. I have jokes for you. So what did I do? I had to buckle down. I told y'all I was going to tell you how I wrote this book in quarantine. I would set up time on my calendar. I would have times each day on my calendar in 2-hour blocks where it would say, Monday, 1 to 3, book. That means no meetings could be on it. That means I couldn't run no errands. I just need to, between 1 to 3, I had to see it in my calendar that I was supposed to write a book. Certain days, I missed it. Certain days, I ain't make it. Certain days, it was like, yeah, that's cute, but I don't have time for it. So I look up and it's mid-March. I remember I was actually texting one of my friends, and because I had accountability buddies. I also had all the accountability buddies. Like, ask me if I've written my book today. If I'm lollygagging on these social medias, ask me if I've written words today. Y'all, I had 35,000 words in March. 35,000. Half of what I was supposed to have, and my deadline was in less than 2 months. It was really hard to write because my brain was unfocused. I was afraid of what the world was going to look like. I didn't even know how I could find words to tell people not to be afraid when I was deeply in fear myself at that time. One thing I actually gave myself 1 week was, you know what? It's okay. If you're missing today's 2-hour block, it's cool. Because how I did book 1 was 2-hour blocks over 5 months. I wrote book 1 in 5 months. I wrote it while traveling, on planes. I wrote it in hotels. That was the year. The year that I wrote book 1, 2015, was the year where I went to 10 countries solo. Because that was the year of me conquering fear. That was the year that I insisted that I wasn't going to let fear stop me by doing things that actively scared me. So that year, I was like, okay, every 2 hours, great, run it. This year, that did not work for me because of the fact that COVID hit. And it was like, you put a global pandemic on top of your own personal, I don't know what's happening. I'm not sure how we're going to make it through this. And it's like a massive disaster. And then now I'm supposed to climb this mountain of writing a whole book? Why? But this book did not leave me alone. This book was sitting on my shoulder. Like, it was like the words were judging me. How I'm talking about some, I'm judging you in book 1, the words that I was supposed to write were judging me. I'd be sitting there like, damn, I should be writing right now, but I'm just sitting here. When the words don't leave you alone is when you should just put them on paper. They'll leave you alone after you put them on paper. There's somebody who knows exactly what I'm talking about. There are words that are not leaving you alone. There's a project that is not leaving you be. There is a book that wants you to write it, and because you have not, it keeps sitting on your shoulders. Is it true? Are you this person? I understand when that happens, because that's what this was. So April comes and I'm like, I gotta get on this for real. My deadline for this book was May 1st, 2020 to be finished. April comes and I only had half the book written. You know what's weird? I didn't panic. At no point did I say, oh my God, like, for some odd reason, I had some real calm about the fact that I was a month out from this book being done, and I felt like I only had half of it done. So what did I do? Banged it out. The words that were sitting on my shoulders, I was like, you know what? Let me get them off. So I would sit there for 3 hours, not 2, because I was like, you know what? You've been giving yourself too much chill. So I would sit on the couch and I would just be like, okay, what is a chapter that you most appeal to today? How do you write a book? Chapter by chapter. How do you climb a mountain? Hill by hill. So consider each chapter a hill. All you have to do is go over one hill at a time. So I would focus on and pull up my proposal and reread the chapter summaries and say, okay, that chapter is what I want to work on today. That's what's on my spirit. And then I sit there and bang it out. There's no need to panic, first of all. Panicking will do nothing. Just know that the words will come. And me, behind my computer screen, sitting in my pajamas, I would bang out a chapter at a time. So close to my deadline date, 2 weeks before my deadline, 2 weeks, I had about 50,000 words. And I was like, okay, let's go. In 12 days, in 12 days, I wrote 33,000 words. 33,000. I told my agent this after I turned in the manuscript. I was like, I didn't want to scare you, but just so you know, I wrote like a third of this book the last 2 weeks. It was like when I finally was like, Luvvie, stop playing these games. Get it done. You procrastinating because you're afraid of your own words. You're afraid of the greatness of what you're creating. My form of procrastination and imposter syndrome was me being so afraid of putting power down on paper that I held it in for as long as I could. Oftentimes we will self-sabotage because we're afraid of the greatness that might come from when we do the thing that we are afraid of. We'll be like, you know what? Nah, I'm not ready to do that thing. Because you know that if you do it, it's going to be transformative. We often talk about fear of failure. We should talk about fear of success. I recognized it and knew that the reason why I procrastinated so long on these words that I was thinking about, dreaming about, already had up here was because I was afraid of the success. My fear is fear of success. So when I finally was like, you're afraid of writing a book about fear because you're afraid of the success that might come from it, because you're afraid that you don't have the tools to handle the success. Sis, write the book. Write the book. Stop playing. And I had that talk with myself. I was like, damn. Even as I'm writing the book is reading me right back to me. I literally was like, I'm over here reading myself for filth. Read myself for filth. And it was that reading of myself that I was like, write this book. Because this book is about doing hard things, about doing scary things. You finishing this book is scary to you, so clearly you have to do it because it's for the greater good. So I wrote 33,000 words in 14 days. And when I tell you something, it wasn't 33,000 trash words. Because as I was writing it, I was like, damn, you ever wrote something that read you for filth? And you was like, God damn. I posted something on my Instagram where I said, have you ever written something that was so good you were like, bitch? Some of y'all saw that post. It was referring to some of these words. You ever read something you wrote and go, bitch, that's fire? That's it? The 33,000 words? That's what I was like, damn. I didn't turn in 70,000 words. My requirement was to turn in 70,000 words. When I turned in my manuscript, I wrote 83,000 words. But again, let me tell you how God works, how nothing's a coincidence. 83,000 words is very random. I wasn't counting my words. When I turned it all in, I saw it was 83,000. I think I even posted it on Insta stories. Fun fact, when I turned in book 1, 83,000 words. Not on purpose. Not done on purpose. I turned in 83,000 words. It ended up being 76,000. How I also turned in 83,000 words for book 2. Not on purpose. But yeah, I did it. I wrote a third of my book in the month before it was due, then 2 weeks before it was due. All in quarantine, all in a time of fear. And how I did it was by breaking it back down to pieces. And then how I also did it was to make sure my mindset was not stopping me from doing what I was supposed to do. I had all the words to begin with. I didn't put them on paper to the end because I was afraid. I am excited for y'all to read this book. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to drop some announcements that I want you to pay attention to because I am putting my lessons down on paper. I'm teaching what I know because oftentimes nobody teaches us this. We don't learn this in college. I went to college, my degree's in psychology. Cool. The life experience I got in college was great. But what I use now is what I learned after that, is what I've learned from taking classes from bosses. It's what I've learned from just watching people in their journeys. It's what I've learned from my own journey. Book writing feels big. Book writing feels big. It's a mountain. You see this and you're like, yo, this is big. But I'm here to tell you that you can write a book. You can write a book. You can write a book. You've been thinking about writing that book. It's been sitting with you. The words are sitting on your shoulders. You can write your book. Do it. Write the best thing you can. Write only in your own words. Don't try to sound like somebody else. Don't try to write a book like somebody else. Write the book you want to read. Honestly, like book 1, book 2 is the book that I want to read. I wrote this book for me that I just happen to be letting other people read. I wrote this book for me when I was 9. I wrote this book for 15-year-old me. I wrote this book for 35-year-old me. I wrote this book for me. Write the book for you and then just let everybody else read it. And I think if you approach it in that way, that is how you will get it done. And I'm so excited for what's to come with this book. Y'all, August is going to be lit. Again, turn on your notifications on my account because we have some things coming. I'm going to do more lives. There's just things I can't tell you about because my team's going to fight me if I do tell y'all about it right now. But that's coming. So I'm going to now get your questions. Writer's block. If you have writer's block is really a form of procrastination. Let's be clear. It's not that you don't have the words. It's that you don't really want to get them down on paper. Writer's block can also be not fixed, but you can, if you feel like you can't write, go read something. Go find inspiration. Go read something, watch something. Go consume a piece of art that you love, that you know is cool, because then it can inspire you and get your blood pumping and whatever that is. Is there a type of software? I write my book in Scrivener. I have an affiliate link for Scrivener. Please use it because I'll be putting people onto Scrivener like this. So after this live, I'm going to go in my Instagram story and I'm going to put a swipe up for the software that I use to write my book. I'm going to put it in the link on Facebook. For those of y'all who are on Facebook, I'll put it in this thread. Scrivener is an amazing app. It is incredible. It is what allows you to write in pieces and brings it together. Did you edit your chapters? Okay, I have one more point to make that I need everybody to hear. Stop editing your work. Stop editing your book. Do not edit your book until you finish draft 1. The job of draft 1 is to exist. Draft 1 exists, then you edit. Oftentimes, we use editing as a form of procrastination. We will say, oh, I haven't been able to finish because I've been editing it. No. Let draft 1 exist in all its roughness, in all its glory, in all its words that might not make all the sense. Write fully. Finish all of the words before you ever go back to edit, because you will end up in an editing loop, an editing cycle. You don't want that. For us who are perfectionists, this is hard to receive. I need you to give draft one permission to be poor. Give draft one permission to be trash. Draft one is not supposed to be impressive. If it's impressive, kudos. But draft one just needs to exist, because draft two can't exist and be good if draft one has not. So get out of your head, get out of the process of going back and editing every sentence, because what happens is you don't get to finish because you're still editing. You're just like, I gotta go edit that again. No, finish it. So somebody here has not finished draft one because they keep editing. Stop it. Stop it. I'm talking to you. Stop it. Finish it. And then you go back and edit, and then it gets good. Take the ego out of it. Writing, take the ego out of it. And the ego is what insists on it has to be so good, otherwise it shouldn't exist. Whether you're writing, whether it's a business, whether it's an idea, we're so stuck on perfectionism. We're so bogged down by the pressures of perfection that we do not create, because we are afraid that if we create and it's not perfect, it does not have a right to exist. So then we walk through life looking for the perfect idea, waiting for the perfect moment to execute something, waiting for perfection to just drop at our laps to let the world see something, when perfection does not exist. Ain't gonna be no perfection. Be like, ain't no perfect companies, ain't no perfect posts, ain't no perfect books. There's no perfect ideas. Just let it fly. And then you fix what is not perfect after the fact. So if you are constantly chasing perfection, you will not create, you will not follow the purpose, because also if your purpose is based on perfect things, you might not realize it. So the ego is hard to break. Therapy helps. I really am a fan of therapy. I am a perfectionist, type A control freak. Everything I've had to unlearn with book writing serves me in life, because it teaches me you have the right to not be perfect. You have a right to not be perfect. Sometimes good is good enough. Sometimes good is good enough. You do not have to be perfect. The thing does not have to be exactly ready for you to let it out into the world. I've done so many things that might not have been ready, perfect, and that's fine. Sometimes it will blow your mind too. The thing that you didn't think was good enough was good enough, because you are the worst judge of your own work. You are the worst judge of the quality of what you create. So let it out in the world. If people say you need to adjust it, make the mistakes, fall on your face, and keep it moving. You won't die if it wasn't perfect. I want to encourage you to do that thing that does not feel good enough. Do and say the thing that does not feel like it is perfect. Because once you say it, then you can fix it. If it doesn't exist, you can't fix it. So I am excited. I'm excited. And y'all have my brain running now too, because I've been wanting to do a book publishing class. It's been on my mind for like a year. So you want to talk about ideas that have not left me, ideas that sit on my shoulders? I want to help demystify books and all of that. So I'll work on that with my team for some type of a launch, but we have something else coming for you that is so good and so valuable that I'm so excited for, that I wish I could tell you right now. But listen, this next couple of weeks, I'll become more on live. We'll be talking more. I'm going to do a few things that I feel like will be helpful to you. But one thing I want you to do, I want you to join Love Nation. Love Nation is my platform where my people be at. So whenever y'all don't see me on Instagram, I'm in Love Nation. Love Nation are my audience. Only them. I only get to talk to them without all the shenanigans and the riffraffs of social media. So we have these conversations in Love Nation a lot. We talk through mindset, all of that stuff. So come to Love Nation. You go to LUVVNation.com. This book is really something I'm proud of. And I'm glad I could come on and talk to y'all about all things book. And I'm really glad this helped y'all. Yo, it is the glow up. Okay, it is time for the leveling up. It is time for the glow up now. Okay. And I will keep bringing transparency. Thank y'all for joining me today. And I hope this was helpful. If it was, go ahead and let me know. I always love your support. Thank y'all so much for always putting the words and the affirmations in me. Words of affirmation are my love language, my number one love language. So I see your comments. I really appreciate them all the time. And y'all really do show up for a G. Y'all show up for me. And I don't take it for granted. So shout out to Love Nation. Shout out to everybody who's followed me on social media for a long time. And more to come. Thank you for listening. And if you want to see the full video on IGTV, we'll link it in the show notes at awesomelyluvvie.com. If you're not already, make sure you're following me on Instagram. I'm at Luvvie everywhere. And turn on those notifications. I'm going to start going live more often, and I want the Rants fam to be there too. If you have any more questions on what it takes to write a book and get it published, drop those questions on Instagram. We're going to do a follow-up over there this week. And you got to join Love Nation, my online community. It's where we make each other laugh, hold each other accountable, and keep each other sane in this dumpster fire of a world. And my love cousins are always the first to know when something is happening in my land. So go to lovenation.com, get yourself signed up. Or search for Love Nation, that's LUVVNATION, in the App Store or on Google Play, and our app will pop up on your phone. Much love to Chicago Recording Company, where I currently don't record this podcast, but they're such a huge help putting my recordings from home together, bringing y'all the radio voice. And subscribe to Rants Randomness. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you prefer to get it. And follow us on social media. We're at Rants Randomness on Twitter and at Rants and Randomness on Instagram. As always, follow me on social media. I'm at Luvvie everywhere. So see y'all on the next episode.